Hello everyone and welcome to my first Starcraft 2 commentated replay. This is Silphidamus and I'm going to be showing you how to play as the Zerg. Now, I'm not exactly, a genius when it comes to Starcraft 2, but I do know a little bit about the game and I'm willing to show a couple of, any newer players out there who are trying to get started how to kind of effectively play as the Zerg without getting steamrolled. So the first thing you should definitely do as a Zerg is, no matter what you're doing, is to scout. And the reason why we're scouting is we're going to see what our opponent is doing. Now, you might be asking, why would it be important to know what your opponent's doing? Well, StarCraft 2 and the Zerg especially are all about having the units that counter your opponent's units. For instance, if your opponent is going with a lot of anti-air stuff, you don't want to start building air units. So it's really important, and to try and find where your opponent is and know what he's doing. Now, as you can see, kind of going the opposite direction, but obviously I didn't know that at this point. So anyway, our first thing to do is to build drones as much as possible until you reach your supply cap. Now, supply is just how many units you can have, and each unit takes up, a different amount of supply. Once you're supply capped, you're going to wait till you pull up 200 minerals, and then you're going to build a spawning pool. And a spawning pool is what's going to let us create our basic units, and called the Zergling. And as you can see, I just got another Overlord when my pool was capped and built up 3 more drones. Once you've started building your spawning pool, you're going to want to build up your extractor. And the reason you're going to do that is that the spawning zone has this little upgrade here called Metabolic Boost. And what that does is it increases the movement speed of your Zerglings. And once you've upgraded this, you will have the fastest units in the game, bar none. So, but they do take a while to get there. So once you've got and you need at least 100 gas. So once you've got your extractor up, you're going to want to put 3 units on it immediately. And of course, remember to keep on putting out drones as much as possible. Don't go too crazy, but you know, try and get as many out there as you can. And also remember to keep pumping out overlords when you have the chance. So as you can see right here, built up a few Zerglings, and also, as you can see, the queen. Now, the queen isn't spawned from the larva, it comes from the hatchery, lair, hive, whatever. And the queen is probably one of the most important units for the Zerg, if not the most important unit, as she has a special ability called Spawn Larvae. And what that does is if you stick it on, you have to click a hatchery or any of its upgrades, and once you do, after 40 seconds you get 4 extra larvae. Now, that's really important because that lets you spawn more units. Even if you're not using them at the moment, always have this ability going. And I'm going to pause this real quick to keep up. An important thing to remember is to control group. And what that means is to put our units into groups so that we can select them a lot easier than trying to catch them around the map. And how you do that is you click something, such as our hatchery, and you're going to press Control and a number. And whichever number you press is officially that control group. For instance, I put mine at 5. So whenever I press 5 from now on, I'm going to select my hatchery. No matter where I am on the map, no matter what I'm doing, I'm instantly going to select my hatchery. And this is really important when you're attacking someone, as you can keep producing units without having to switch back to your base. I do recommend also putting your queen into a control group, so again, you can select her very easily. And also your army. So, speaking of army, we found out where our opponent is, and we are sending down our 6 Zerglings to harass them. And what I mean by harass is I'm not going in there to try and blow up the base, but of course if I can, I will. But I'm simply going down there and attack their workers. And the reason I'm doing this is if your opponent has workers off the line, or no workers preferably, he can't collect minerals or build anything. And if he can't do that, he is severely weakened. And he can't build up counter units, protect his base, attack your base, anything. I do make a mistake here and go after his Reaper. That was a very bad idea. Don't recommend that. But, you killed a few of his workers, which really puts him back. And now he has to spend more resources to build workers rather than building up units. And as you can see, the second group is going down because I saw he didn't have much defense. So this is a strategy that I definitely suggest. especially when playing the Terran, is to build something called a Baneling nest. And what that does is it lets your little Zerglings become Banelings. And Banelings are these rolling, basically living bombs that are just going to roll in and obliterate any infantry unit or even a lot of machines that your opponent can throw at you. Again, another really big mistake, going straight into the choke point of my opponent. I do have another set of units coming in. This wasn't that big of a mistake, but it was a mistake nonetheless. So, you know, so again, going down here harassing, and it's very important for the Zerg to harass, in my opinion, because if you can see what your opponent's doing and stop him for a lot longer, it lets you mass up your units a lot easier. Now, it is, a lot of people, not everyone harasses, and I think that's a bad idea, especially as the Zerg. Your units are pretty cheap, they train up pretty quickly, and it's really not that big a deal if you lose, 10, 12 Zerglings. Because, I mean, as you can see, I already have an even larger amount on my base. So, as a Zerg, I always recommend harassing if you can. Now, of course, if you go to harass and your opponent has a much better force than you do, you might want to back off because, losing units for no apparent reason is just stupid. But as you can see, I've got my little exploding Banelings here, which look really cool. And, got my Zerglings rushing ahead. I'm going to pause this here so you guys can see it. When your metabolic boost is activated, you'll see that your Zerglings have these little wings on them. And that's when you can start calling, that's when they start to be called Speedlings, because they are the fastest unit in the game. A lot of Zerg haters will start calling them Fairy Zerg or whatever, but they're Speedlings if you're a Zerg player. Just Speedlings. So, and as you can see, they are really fast. And they're going to get down to this base before you can do anything. And as you can see, ran right past his army. No point in attacking the army. I've got my Banelings coming up to get rid of his army. Better use is to just go and blow up his mineral supply. Now, as you can see, no minerals. Bad thing is Banelings aren't nearly as fast as Zerglings, but they're twice as effective against infantry. As you can see, his entire army, most of it just got wiped out. So, again, Queen is pumping out larvae, Overlords kind of getting in the way, and as you can see here, we have something being built again. This is the Roach Warren, and there's two effective uses for the roaches that I found. The first really effective way is as a quick rush. They're pretty quick to come out, and they're actually pretty powerful. They're armored, they have range, they're great uses for when your Zerglings will tie up your opponent, and then your roaches can just hit them from afar. The second really good use of roaches that I found is to use them as bait. And what I mean by that is, if you have a force of, Banelings, and you've got 20 of them or so, and you want to get them into your opponent's base without them just getting blown up before they get there, send 10, 12 roaches up there and let them act as bait. Let them take the, all the brute force, let them take the fire. I mean, they're probably going to die, but they can last a lot longer than Banelings can. They have a lot more health, and they're just overall stronger. They're also armored, so they take a lot less damage. They do have a weakness.